Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we are doing a review for Ultraman Rising, the new Ultraman series, the Ultraman movie that just came out on Netflix as of the release of this video. I actually watched this a few days early. I watched it on Wednesday because Madness Games and Comics, which is a local comic book shop here in the area, got in contact with this place called Angelica Film Center, which is a historical film center here in Dallas. It's a really interesting little theater, and they were having a screening. So through Madness, they were giving out tickets to the screening for free, right? And so I signed up, I got one, and I went down to the movie theater at 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. And it was kind of interesting because I've never been to that theater before, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. The area was interesting. It was nice. It was near the center of Dallas, but not exactly in the center. And the screening was kind of odd. Like I've never been to a screening before, right? I've never seen a movie ahead of time before, right? But I assumed that it would be mostly people that are, on social media, that are influencers, that are part of the company, right? And there was quite a few people that were part of the company there. There was a whole section, squared off just for Netflix, right? And there was a lot of people that were there that were sitting in those seats, but I have no clue who they were. It didn't seem like it was anyone associated with the actual movie. It seemed more like people that worked at Netflix for whatever reason, or people that were invited by Netflix to go there as, like PR, right? And then there was two other sections besides, the free seating. And the two sections were like a organization for children, which is cool and it makes sense. I think that was a good opportunity that they took there. And the other one was, I think, an organization for geriatrics, right? For old people. And that was also interesting. I wasn't really sure. I didn't know that screenings also functioned as like, what's it called? Like opportunities to do like community service type stuff, right? So that was interesting. It wasn't really what I was expecting, but to be honest, I don't know what I was expecting at all. But the movie started eventually. It started at like 7:10. There was no ads or anything. The movie just started, and it had the Netflix pop up and everything. The Badoom. And everything like a normal Netflix movie, but watching it in the big screen was probably the best way to watch this movie, which kind of sucks that it doesn't have, a wide release in theaters because, Ultraman is about being this giant guy, right? And I feel like this movie is exactly the type of movie that kids want to watch, right? And it's also good because as an adult, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought that it had amazing stuff, right? Like the only other movies that I can think of that are like this, in terms of genre, it would be like something like Big Hero 6, right? And in terms of like how much it felt like something that, adults would really be into and kids might be into, is kind of like Ratatouille. Now, Ratatouille and Ultraman Rising have nothing to do with each other, right? They're as far away as possible as you can be. But when I watch Ratatouille as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is not necessarily made for kids. Like the people that would understand this are adult 20-year-olds, right? Or 30-year-olds that are going through life and they realize that their life sucks, but they have like one thing that's good about it and they want to keep doing that thing, right? And then the way that it's similar to Big Hero 6 is like, it's a story about a family and how that family and the superheroics that are happening are related to each other and, what the point of that is, right? And there's also elements here that remind me of How to Train Your Dragon, right? It has that same kind of style as well, where it's like a character that meets another character and they become, friends or family or whatever you want to call it. And through that, they both grow, right? And there's a reconnection with a father figure through that new, relationship, right? So that's kind of what I got out of it, right? But in terms of like the actual movie and how it went, I thought the movie was phenomenal, like a 10 out of 10. And I would really actually rewatch it tonight when it comes out on Netflix, because I liked it that much. I thought it was great. It was phenomenal. There was no issues with the animation. I didn't notice any problems with the scripting. There was literally, like, this was a movie that was well made, that was caringly made, that was lovingly made, and that had a lot of heart and a lot of interest behind it. Like, the people that made it like Ultraman, or it feels like they like Ultraman, and it also feels like they wanted to tell a good story, right? Like, this is what I remember Disney movies being, right? And this is what I remember Star Wars being. This is not like this is what I remember movies were like when I was a kid, right? Because most movies nowadays are not that good. You know, they're either really generic, or they're really like boring, or they're, you know, they look like they're television shows or whatever the case may be. This movie was amazing, wonderful. I have some complaints, right? Like very minimal ones. Like, for example, I don't really like the way that the main character looks, right? I think every other character looks fine, but just the way that the main character looks when he's not Ultraman weirds me out. But everyone else looks great. And it has that kind of like Pixar look to it, right? Because it was made by ILM. So that's really cool. And it's also why it also kind of looks a little bit like Star Wars, The Clone Wars. It has that kind of like rubbery, or like kind of like almost like claymation, but not really, because you know that it's not clay kind of look to it that I really like. So that's really my only complaint. I don't like the main character, like the way that they look. But the action scenes are great. The dialogue is really funny. The storyline is very nicely done. The side characters are good, although there is another complaint here. There's a female side character who has a daughter and a mother figure. And these characters are not that important to the story. But there is a clear way that they could have been. And the fact that that choice was not made, and what actually happened was that these female characters disappeared for the second half of the movie and then reappeared right at the climax to kind of witness our character, you know, sacrifice, was a bit of a miss for me. I feel like there could have been a little bit more done to make those characters like a little bit more relevant to the story, right? Because it feels like a lot of the emotional development that our main character went through was thanks to that female character, and thanks to their interactions, right? And so I would have liked it to be a little bit more meaningful, and there being a little bit more connection between them. However, there is a tease for a second movie coming, so it makes sense that they wouldn't really bother doing that yet, because if they want to make a franchise of movies out of this, you know, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 movies, it makes sense to leave some of those elements for later, right? But yeah, everything was great. I really loved it. I had a lot of fun with it. I really liked the story, which is pretty simple, right? It's just main character is the son of Ultraman, and when he grows up, he becomes Ultraman, right? But because we didn't see him grow up, there's a lot of problems that came through his childhood by having his father be a hero, right? A father that had to choose between protecting Japan or going with his son to America, and chose to protect Japan, right? And so there is a problem between Ken Sato, our main character, and his father. I forgot his name. And then Ken's mom dies, right? Or disappears in some way. And so Sato is their family name. Ken decides to come back to Japan because he now has to take over the Ultraman mantle, right? And he doesn't really want to be Ultraman, but it's his responsibility, because I guess he's the only one that can, because he's the only one that has genetic makeup similar to his father. And he has to balance being Ultraman with his baseball career, right? And it's not really going well, right? Then a kaiju attacks. I can't remember the name of this kaiju. I tried to look them up. It seems like this is a kaiju made for this movie. And this kaiju has an egg. And this egg hatches when Ken goes to retrieve it, right? As it hatches, it imprints on Ken. And so now Ken has to take care of it, right? So it's kind of similar to Monsters, Inc. too. And so now Ken has to balance Ultraman with being a father, with being a baseball player, right? And it's not really working at all. And he's struggling so hard, and it's going badly, but eventually there is a moment where it all clicks, right? And he uses baseball, which is the passion that he has, the one thing that makes him smile. He even says that in the movie, as a way to connect with this kaiju child, right? And from there, his relationship with the kaiju child changes. It gets better. He becomes more of a father. He has a conversation with that female character that I mentioned. And he starts winning at his baseball games again, right? Then an attack happens. The Kaiju Defense Force wants the Kaiju baby. And so they, when it escapes by accident, they start attacking it. They decide to attack Ken as well. And then the child gets injured, right? And so Ken has to call his dad, who is the only person that he can call for help, the only person that would be able to help him, when it comes to kaiju. And so now this rekindles their bond, right? And then the story continues on from there for a bit, and then it all kind of comes crashing down. There's this attack. There's this scene reminiscent of when Tony Stark's house blows up in Iron Man 3, and from there, we basically just have the superhero fight of the end of the movie, right? And it works phenomenally. It really is wonderful. Like, everything that happens makes sense. Maybe you can argue that between the character realizing that he's doing better now, that his family is better now, to like it all coming crashing down for the climax of the story, there wasn't enough time between those two sets of plot points. You could argue that, but I really don't think that really makes too much of a difference. And honestly, you don't really need a 3-hour animated movie, right? Which would have happened if they made more time for it, right? At the same time, maybe this could have been a show, but then I feel like the pacing would have been worse, right? So I'm very happy with the results. I'm really happy with what they did. I think it all worked out really nicely. There's some really good things and kind of details that I noticed that I liked, right? So first of all, Ken has like a place where he hangs out at his house, right? It's like his Ultraman base or whatever. It's underwater, and he has this couch, and he has like stuff behind him like I do, right? And one of the things he has behind him is a Power Rangers Dino Thunder Megazord, right? And technically it's a Q Ranger, I think is the name of the Japanese version. I can't remember. Q Ranger might be the original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger series, but it's that one instead of Mighty Morphin, which is amazing because Mighty Morphin is the one that everyone remembers, but Dino Thunder is the best. It's my favorite, alongside Wild Force, right? And so that was one thing I noticed that I liked. The baby is really cute. Like the little kaiju monster is adorable. I really like it. I think it'd be really nice for them to make a Squishmallow out of it, and make a bunch of different plushies out of it. I think it would work really nicely. And it almost has this kind of like, I want to say it has like a Baby Yoda vibe to it, but I think that's just because Baby Yoda is like the baby character in my mind right now, where it might not really be that similar, right? I mean, they both have floppy ears and stuff, but I don't think it's that similar. It's just like, there really isn't any other character that I can think of that would work, right? Also, there's certain moments where the animation gets slightly better, slightly more dynamic, slightly cooler, and when you notice it because the rendering on the characters changes slightly. It's a little bit more like shiny, or it's a little bit more like hard. I don't know how to describe it, but that happens 2 or 3 times in the movie, and all of the times that it happens is great because it really ramps up the animation style. It looks a little bit more dynamic, more cool, and it works to emphasize, you know, this is badass stuff right now, right? Alongside that, there's these interesting background scenes that they do where when Ultraman transforms, he has this weird, interesting, like, it almost looked like he's going like angry, right? But it's not really, because he's just accessing the alien part of him or whatever. There's also these moments where the color gradient changes, or the colors on the screen change. It's not a gradient, sorry, that's the wrong terminology. But the colors of the screen invert or go to black and white. Both things happen for different reasons, but that's also really cool. I really like that style because it does give you this like, oh, this is an old thing, so we're gonna use old looking things to remind you of that, right? Then it works nicely. What else? There's a lot of things that I saw in this movie that I feel like I've seen in other superhero movies, and that's not a problem. I think that that's great. I really like that because it connects everything in a way where it's like, yes, this is a Japanese movie. Yes, it's about baseball. Most people don't really know what the fuck baseball is or how to play it. And yes, most people don't really know who Ultraman is, but you can still understand what's happening because you can see a scene and then you can remember, oh, this is from this movie that I've seen before, and kind of understand what's going on, right? So at least that's how it worked for me. Some people might be like, oh, why did they use a bunch of scenes that are, from other movies? I don't really care. I think it works well. What else is there? Like, to me, it worked out really nicely that they did all of these things that remind me of other movies that are also in the genre, right? So that's great. Also, I really like that the beginning segment of the story was very clearly meant to tell you who Ultraman is, what his powers are, why he exists, and to show you, you know, who the original Ultraman is, and then passing it on to the new one, right? So all of that works really nicely. What else? I don't know. I just really liked it. I ugly cried like twice. There was these really great emotional, heart-wrenching moments where it's like, oh, I might have never struggled with my dad the way this character is doing, but I can understand that, right? And since I recently lost my grandfather, I'm thinking about those family relationships a bit more than usual. And so a lot more things happened in this movie that made me kind of like, start to cry or start to like tear up, that maybe wouldn't have happened in another, if I watched it at a different time in my life. But I liked all of those moments because it didn't detract from the story. It actually enhanced it, right? And the comedy did the same thing, right? All of the comedy was like your standard, Marvel comedy, but it was sparse, it was well done, it was really nicely executed, and it was put in the right moments. And it never really undercut tension. It was all just kind of to add to the great atmosphere that's going on in the movie, right? So overall, this was a phenomenal movie. I loved it, 10 out of 10. I really recommend you guys watch it. If nothing else, just because I think that Power Rangers is no longer going to be on Netflix, right? Like they Hasbro or whoever owns the Saban, I think, whoever owns that, decided that, you know what, maybe it's not right for us to be on Netflix. We're gonna remove it from here, or we're not gonna go forward with the new Power Rangers stuff that we wanted to do with Netflix, right? So Netflix lost out on Power Rangers, but if they managed to get Ultraman, I think that would be better, right? Not because I dislike Power Rangers. Actually, I'm basically only a fan of the Power Rangers because that's the only thing that I remember from growing up, right? I don't know Ultraman. I don't know Kamen Rider that much. I mean, I know Kamen Rider now, right? But, if I was to rate the three tokusatsus, which one do I care more about, I would pick Power Rangers, right? But this movie managed to open up my eyes to Ultraman, right? I really want to know more about it. I want to continue with this. And I really hope that this movie ends up being successful for Netflix because I want to see more of it. I really want to see what happens in the second movie because they teased that there was one, or there was one coming, right? There was a post-credit scene. And I want to see where that goes, right? So I hope you guys watch it. Also, I did get one of these little Ultraman gotcha thingies, although this one is kind of bad. Like, I need to put it in water or something so it gets straightened out because when he stands, he's just kind of like toppling over, right? But it was cute. They gave this to me for free at the screening. So yeah, overall, great stuff. I hope you guys watch it. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. and see you guys in the next one. So see you guys later.